Hello YouTube and welcome to this new video on Wuthering Waves. On today's program we are going through Tower of Adversity for version 2.6 and well, this iteration dropped a couple days before Iuno's release, so what did I use, what were the enemies, and what is new with Tower of Adversity. To start off, now we have a quick clear function. If you've cleared floors 1 through 3 in both the left and right towers, then you no longer have to clear them again. Which is good, but it comes with a caveat. The game will take the characters you used to clear those floors during the previous iteration of Tower of Adversity, which means that those characters will lose their vigor and might not be available to be used elsewhere. In my case, it was Carlotta and Xiangli. But of course, the consensus online is to try and use a 4-star to solo these floors, and I did try, but unfortunately my 4 stars are not great, so I tried using characters who have attributes that are similar to each other. In other words, elements for which I had 2 DPSs. For instance, for Spectro, I have both Jinshi and Zani. The thing is, my Zani is at S4, she's my main, so of course I will always use her over Jinshi. So I might as well sacrifice our poor Sentinel girl to floors 1 through 3. In the same vein, for Aero, I have both Cartethyia and Jian. Unfortunately, I could not solo with Jian on the right side because the current enemies have resistance to Aero, and my Jian ain't that strong. In the meantime, I just use Xiangli because I have Augusta as an other electro DPS. On top of that, I do not use Xiangli often, so he ended up being the best choice for me. But as I just said, it was the best choice for me. For you, it might change depending on what character you have available and what character you think can solo floors 1 through 3. But the gist is, use whatever characters you don't think you will need for higher difficulties. Another addition are 2 more floors in the middle tower, where the enemies will still be at level 100, but you will only need 150 seconds left to get your 3 stars instead of 180 seconds like it was in floors 1 and 2. But this means you need yet another team. That being said, you can use anything that is strong enough without taking advantage of the buffs. And speaking of the buffs, it's really simple to understand this time. The left tower is for Zani. I mean, you get Spectral Resistance decrease, heavy attack damage, a little Frazzle application on intro skills, and straight up Spectral Frazzle damage amplified by 100%. Yeah, at this point I don't think Kuro is even trying to be subtle here. Although, technically speaking, Phoebe can also take advantage of this. Usually you would run Peebs as a Zani support / Spectral Frazzle applicator, but she can work on her own as a main DPS. Though you will need Spectral Rover to apply some Spectral Frazzle for her, since she does not apply as much of it when she's in her DPS mode, which, just in case if you're confused, blue forte bar, which is triggered by holding the skill button, is for her support mode, while the yellow forte bar, which is triggered by holding the normal attack button, that is her DPS mode. While in DPS mode she will still apply some Spectral Frazzle, but just not as much. Now for the right tower, it's for Xiangli or Calcaro, if anyone still uses him anymore. You get some electro resistance decrease, some attack upon casting intro skill, and liberation damage upon skill cast. So yeah, once again, the buffs seem to be quite specific. Then on to the middle tower, we have floor 1 and 2 being for Cartethyia, or I suppose Ciaccona. It is still kind of the same vein as Zani and Phoebe, in the sense that Ciaccona can be used as a Cartethyia support, but she can also be used as a main DPS. Because here, there is Aero and Havoc resistance decrease, but the second part of the buff is increased max HP and defense down on enemies with Aero erosion. And there aren't that many Aero erosion teams now, are there? Especially with a character who would benefit from increased max HP. And finally, for floors 3 and 4, Augusta is written all over the place. We start with a generic buff to damage that is stacking up, then we have some heavy attack damage, then some shield creation, then the shield creation gives some damage bonus, and, more importantly, enemies take 10% less damage when allies don't have a shield, and of course when the allies have a shield, the enemies won't have that resistance. In terms of supports, we have like 5 of them, and well, 2 of them are the same character, so it's kind of complicated. Aero Rover is of course for Aero Erosion teams, and Spectro Rover is obviously for Spectro Frazzle teams. Although technically I suppose they could both work in different teams, it's just that once again their buffs are very specific. Otherwise we have Shorekeeper the Goat, Verina and Baija. There is no particular synergy to worry about with these supports, and thus far they have been pretty universal. Shore is of course the best, followed by Verina and then by Baija. But for these 3, what I do is simply that I place the strongest support with whatever I consider to be my weakest team or my weakest builds, and vice versa. As I said before, technically you can clear with a strong enough team that does not take advantage of the buffs, though of course it will be harder. On the other hand, try to avoid using characters with an attribute that the enemy is resistant to. So, no Havoc on the left tower, no Aero on the right tower, no Spectro or Glacio on the floors 1 and 2 of the middle tower, and no Spectro on floor 3, and no Fusion and Glacio on floor 4 of the middle tower. Man, this is a lot. But if you have the right characters with decent builds, you will blitz through this easily. At least I did, more or less. If you don't, then, well, for the left tower, you could go with a Jinshi team accompanied by either Zhe or Yinlin. I would recommend Verina with Jinshi, as she does have some coordinated attacks that will help Jinshi get her forte bar up, though Shorekeeper's buff are pretty good as well, so I will leave that choice to you. On the right tower, I have no idea in terms of team alternatives. For floor 1 and 2 of the middle tower, I guess maybe Jian could work with more Taffy. And then on floors 3 and 4 of the middle tower, maybe Xiangli with Lupa and Rant. Despite the fact that the Dragon of Dirge is resistant to fusion, he is the only one, so maybe it will still work. I'm not going to lie, it is quite difficult to give alternative team ideas with a roster so small, and more importantly, such hyper-specific buffs. And this brings me to an issue I see with Wuthering Waves in its current state. The team at Kuro Games is going for hyper-specific kits with very clearly defined synergies. We have Spectral Frazzle, Aero Erosion, and now Frequent Shield Generation, but for each of these archetypes we have only a handful of characters. Actually, scratch that, we have less than a handful of characters. Frazzle is basically 2 characters if you don't count the Rover, same with Erosion, and Frequent Shield Generation is no one except Augusta and Iuno, who were recently released. The problem, in my opinion, is twofold. For starters, it makes team composition almost non-existent. Wanna play Zani? Grab your Phoebe or your Spectral Rover. If not, too bad you can't really play Zani. Wanna play Cartethyia? Grab your Ciaccona or your Aero Rover. If not, too bad you can't really play Cartethyia. I will agree that Cartwheel is a bit more independent than Batman, but not by much. Same with Augusta, who's even more independent than Cartwheel, but Iuno's Blessing of the Wan Light solely exists to buff Augusta. Literally no one else can take advantage of that blessing, as no one can generate shields fast enough to actually stack the blessing. And it's not like a little buff, no, she gives a 40% all damage amplification. Of course, we can also mention the 100% damage amplification on Phoebe and Ciaccona's outro. It's the same thing, only Zani and Cartethyia can take advantage of that, which now brings me to the second issue with the direction. The buffs in Tower of Adversity are becoming just as specific. This means the game incentivizes you to play the newer units to the detriment of older ones. And yes, this is not surprising, gacha games want you to pull for the newest and shiniest character. That is how they make their money. But my concern here is merely how fast all the units will be phased out. Right now I think Wuthering Waves is still doing okay-ish, but this might quickly change. This is why I'm voicing my concern, and I'm not just yapping about it in this video. I've mentioned these issues in the feedback section of surveys every patch, but I thought it was still worth mentioning here as well. I do talk about these things on stream, but I figured why not in a video too. Don't get me wrong, I still love Wuthering Waves just like I love all the games that I play, otherwise I would have simply stopped playing them. Still, I believe we as players should voice our opinion so the devs can take corrective actions to make their game even better. At the end of the day, this is just my opinion on the state of Tower of Adversity, and to be honest, my Zani is still doing fine. She's S4, hopefully soon to be S6, so the day she becomes obsolete is nowhere near in sight. Still, Kuro Games, if for some unknown reason you're listening to this French owl speaking English to a Chinese company, please give Zani a way to apply Spectrofrazzle on her own. Please give us buffs that can be used by all the units, if not in their entirety, then at least partially. And I guess while I'm at it, I might as well ask for the enemies in Wuthering Waves to stop running away from you. Also, a few more 4 stars would be nice. And now on to the build section of the video.
With style and grace. Entertain me. Taste my resolve. Causality over
Conquest begins now.
Sun shall arise to scatter the unending night. Shall blood still speak? Prophecy gave rise. I led the foe with burning light. I bled for faith through endless fight. I heard the voice that none could find. I chose to break their God's design. Sunlight shall lead this in the world. Crimson hands we march in silence. Sunlight shall bring me to the sun cloud. It's the stone right of flame. Shine far like coals, burn as we flows. Steel shall split the dark. We ride with roaring flame. Strike without fear. We fight with the flame. Rise for crown sways. Burn as it stays. Fire shall mark the praise. We rise with roaring flame. Strike without fear. We fight, we brave. Dawn carves my name in Don't fear the black night grow. Don't blink it foe. Don't let the cold grow. It is all I know. Shine far like coals, burn as we flows. Steel shall split the dark. We rise.
And that was my clear of Wuthering Waves Tower of Adversity patch 2.6. If you found this video enjoyable or helpful in any way, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it helps keep the happy in Happy LTV. You can also leave a comment on how I could improve my runs or how you cleared your Tower of Adversity. If you want more story related content, I livestream on both Twitch and YouTube every Wednesday, Thursday and Friday at 6 PM Central European Summer Time, and every Saturday at 4 PM Central European Summer Time. On that note, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or the next livestream.